I'm going to start off over here with Kelsey. Kelsey, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Kelsey Jo Silva. I have been creating comics essentially for over 10 years, but I was first published in 2024 with the publisher Little Bee Books. We wrote a graphic novel called Off Menu with the author Oliver Gerlach. He is in England, so we had actually another publisher and another title to our book called The Restaurant at the Edge of the World. That was published in January of 2025. It's the same book, different publisher, different title, different country. And that's kind of been my first initial step, my foot in the door in comics.
Hi, I'm Aria Bell. I write and draw the comic Kid Commander. It's also a novel series now. It's a queer shonen, and I've been doing that professionally for a little over 12 years by putting it out for free on the internet.
Hi, I'm John Bonjour, and I also put a comic out for free on the internet called Edge of Bordertown, and I have been drawing comics for as long as I can remember, honestly. I distinctly remember finding this neighborhood garage sale that the neighbor that I had never met, he was like, "Do you like comics?" And I was like, I'm like 8, I don't know what you're talking about. And he was like, "Well, here, try these." And he gave me so many comics for like 10 cents. It was crazy. And I feel like I held on to that gift, and I wanted to share that with people. So, yeah.
How did you first get into comics? And how did you discover that that was your medium that you wanted to tell stories through?
Well, this is awkward. So I was at a garage sale. No, I think after that, I read a bunch of Spider-Man, and I was like, this guy's amazing. Then I just started kind of drawing, and the more I drew, the more I realized I can kind of get my head around this. Also, I was very, what is the nice word for lonely? I was very lonely, and so then I used to like just sit in my room all the time and draw comics, and then I realized I kind of love this, and this is a way I can connect with people.
So I wanted to be a writer first for a very long time, and then I hit junior high, I think, and discovered that there were comics outside of the big two. There was a webcomic called Girl Genius that was putting pages online for free 3 times a week. They're still running. They've been going forever and ever. They will probably outlive me at this rate. And I was like, oh man, anybody can do this. This is a medium that anybody can sit down and learn how to do. So I kind of messed with the writing for a little bit longer, and then I hit college and I watched One Piece, and it kind of ruined my life. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And so I just started doing it, and nobody has stopped me yet. So I'm still at it, and funny enough, in the last year or so, I've circled back around to getting into prose writing, so now I do both. And I'm very tired, but I enjoy it a lot.
So I think I came at it a little bit from a sideways angle. I went to school for illustration and discovered comics then. So I came at them a little bit later in life. I discovered kind of that what I wanted to do wasn't necessarily just making art for a living, but telling stories as well. So I started experimenting with sort of making a really terrible webcomic first that hopefully is taken off the internet everywhere. And have been sort of just stumbling my way through making my own comics ever since.
What does the creative process look like for creating a short story in comic form, end to end?
Messy.
Can you elaborate on that a little?
Yeah, I think in theory we want to write it first, right? In theory you want to know what you're going to draw before you start drawing, but you don't always get that far before you start drawing. And so there might be a lot of back and forth between the thumbnail and the drawing part.
I don't know. I've made about 900 comic pages, and I still am not really sure what the process is. Yeah, I think the easy answer is you come up with the script and then you draw it, but honestly, that's not how everybody works. Like comics, there's so many different parts, different moving parts to making a comic, and there's so many different skills that go into it. A lot of people completely start just doodling, like they'll just have a blank page and come up with the layouts as they go, and some people do like script it way out in advance, ideally. And you know, there's all kinds of ways to go about it. It's a really complicated medium, and there's a lot of different things that you need to get under your belt and get comfortable with. And I think, as far as I know, as far as everybody that I've ever talked to, every comic artist has a completely different process. Like, there are people who collaborate on things, and that is a mystery to me. I don't know how I do it half the time, so I don't know how I would be able to work with someone else to do it too. Do you have any?
I mean, I took a pretty in-depth comic writing class at one point, and I think I used probably 6% of what I learned in any of the comics that I actually do, which is not a dig on the class. That was a very professional and thorough way to go about writing comics, and probably the way. But I just kind of, I mean, if we're talking like short stories specifically, all of my short stories so far have been based on just like, I kind of want to draw this weird monster. How can I make that a story? And so I think just writing it, the writing is so important, and I feel blessed to have that be a thing that kind of comes pseudo naturally, kind of just from reading a lot of comics and watching a lot of movies and absorbing a lot of stories. So I think in terms of the writing, it can be a little tough to kind of know how to impart that and how to like share that outside of just kind of make them, honestly, which is horrible advice, but it's kind of, I mean, I also have several comics that I hope never see the light of day ever again. So yeah, I mean, it's just kind of trial and error, and then for me, my short work is just like, what's a cool thing I want to get to.
I think if I could add like just some maybe general thing here, like if you were thinking about starting your own comic or getting into the medium in any capacity, don't feel like there is one specific way to do it. If you find, I always, I like to say whatever gets the page done. I do a web comic, so it's kind of like the laying out railroad track as fast as the train goes. And when you do something at speed, or doing a graphic novel and trying to get it done in under 10 years, you do what works. So if you find some method that works for you, and everyone else is like, no, you have to start like this. This is how you don't listen to them. If you find something that gets the work done that you want to get done, that's the method. That's what
Okay, so don't go to school and don't listen to the experts.
Yes, ignore everyone and do whatever you want forever.
And
Hey.
learn nothing, never learn.
Learn nothing.
That's learn nothing. So I guess the panel's over. Tell me more about the timeline. You mentioned 10 years for doing some process. What is the average length of your story versus time it took to put it together?
Don't ask me that. That's a rude thing to ask a webcomic artist, Nick. Okay, well, Kid Commander is based on traditional shonen manga, which is way too long. One Piece was my primary inspiration, and One Piece has been going for like 25 years now. So I certainly bit off more than I could chew by starting this as my first comic project. I've learned a lot though, so I do think it turned out well in the end. But the first arc was about 450 pages, and I think that took about 4 years. The second arc was 210, and I got that done in 2 years. The current arc is gonna hit 400 pages soon, I think, and that one started in like 2019. So it really, comics always take longer than you think they're going to, no matter what it is. And I think you should just overestimate how long things are gonna take. Like, I could say, oh, it takes me 8 hours to finish a full colored page, but every page is different. Different pages have different densities, some have fewer or more backgrounds or more characters on them, so even, like, I've been doing this every day for over a decade now, and I'm very familiar with my own process, but I also am never able to anticipate exactly how long something is going to take. So I guess if there is useful advice that I could give for this question, it would just be to think about how long you think it's going to take and then add like a year, maybe, conservatively.
So I can answer. Off menu took me from start to finish a year and a half to draw, and that was full 2 colored pages. I know that because I started on January 1st. And this was a book. Yeah, it worked out really well in being able to count the timeline.
Write that down.
I started January 1st and ended, I think I turned pages in May of the next year. The book I'm working on now is a little bit messier because I wrote it. So there's been a lot of back and forth between me and the editor, and then not getting a lot of response from the editor and charging ahead with my own pages. And so it's probably going to take 2.5 years from start to finish for that one, and that's going to be around 292 pages.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So you are working with a publisher, like traditional publishing? So this is your full-time, is this the only project that you're working on at any given time?
No. Absolutely not.
Wow, so a year, 2 years on top of other projects.
Yeah.
Full color pages. Wow.
They're not like, I don't have a beautiful style, I would say. I think that I draw very
Disagree.
well, but I don't think that I'm a very tidy artist, if that makes sense. And I think that's something that you need to sort of cultivate in order to do comics full time in that way.
Definitely.
So can I clarify on that?
Yeah.
There's a number of different things that go into the art development of a comic or graphic novel. So you have not only the line drawings, the sketching, all of that, the placement, the sequencing. You also have the lettering, you have inking, you have coloring, and you have finishing on top of all of that, shading. Sometimes, so tell me about how much of that process do you own on your own plate versus how much of that do you collaborate with others on?
So for Off Menu, I did not write the book. I did not write the script, and I did not letter it. I did nearly everything else. I didn't do the book design. I did the cover art, but I didn't like lay out the pages. So I would say, I don't know a percentage of that book. I own 100% of the art in it, I would say, was mine.
Yeah, and specifically, I was asking about you said you're not a very tidy artist. So does that refer to the earlier components of it or towards the later end of it?
I would say that my drawings aren't very tidy towards the very end. I think they work very well for a comic page. Maybe that's being a little cruel to myself, but I don't think there's anything wrong with having pages that are a little bit messier. I think especially when you're doing 200 pages of a book.
So it doesn't take you 6 years to draw the book?
Yeah.
Did you get to speak on this topic, John? Do you want to turn? Please take
Did
it.
I guess not. Yeah, this question is tough. It does take a long time. I think if I'm giving like general advice, I would say just don't exactly plan, like set deadlines for yourself, but if you can avoid it at all, at least on the early stuff, like just let yourself go through the process and figure out what that looks like before you set the deadline if it needs to be done by whenever time, because it's probably not going to be, and that I hope that stops at some point, but it hasn't yet. For Edge of Border Town, yeah, like the average length is tough because it just changes story to story. So I have one that's I think 23 pages, and I have another that's like 80 something. So it just depends. The first volume, which is the first 6 chapters, is like 280-ish pages, and that took me I think 3 years of like active writing and drawing, and then a couple of years of development before that, before I knew I was actually going to do it. And yeah, you guys both have some pretty staggering numbers that I am overwhelmed by.
It's all fluff for me.
I don't think so.
How many of in our audience want to make their own comic? Okay. So what I am curious about asking, there seems to be a number of decision points along the way. What in your opinion is the most important decision points that you make along the way of crafting your story and figuring out if it's something that you're going to stick with? Because 2 years is a big commitment to stick with a storyline. So what were some of the breakpoints that you looked at as you were developing your stories?
That's a good question. So like I mentioned before, Edge of Border Town is definitely my longest running, and several different comics that I did before that kind of led up to this. And so I think for me, the breaking point that I was like, this is the baby, this is the one that I'm gonna stick with, was when I got 2 chapters in and I had 7 or 8 more kind of in the chamber. Like when I start to see these ideas develop themselves, that's when I know I'm making the right call. And so yeah, I mean, like that's such an amorphous answer, quite honestly, but I think there is something to be said for it. It isn't gonna be fun all the time. Like there's gonna be times where you're like, I just don't want to draw this page because the background is too complicated, or there's too many whatever you don't like drawing is gonna inevitably come up in whatever you write. And so I think part of it is just acknowledging that like I'm not always gonna love this process, but I love being in it and I love making it.
Is that a breakpoint for you too? Say a background is too complicated, or a scene is there's too many things happening, too many elements to be able to cohesively convey what you were hoping to say? And do you then make a change based on that, or do you just keep chugging?
It probably should be more than it is for me. But I think I just kind of power through, and if I can frame things, this is the secret. If I can frame things, even large crowd scenes or whatever it is, I don't like drawing crowd scenes. Just it's a lot of people, and I'm lazy, I guess. Yeah. Okay, great, good company. But yeah, if I can frame things in dynamic ways that can kind of establish whatever the detail that I need to draw is, and then sort of remove it from the rest of the pages, that's the sweet spot.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, take shortcuts. That's how you make comics, is you find places you can make shortcuts that don't kill you, and then you take them.
You draw messy. It's my number one piece of advice.
It's good advice.
Learn to draw worse.
Don't paint a webcomic, or any comic anywhere. I think as far, the original question being, when do you decide how much time you want to sink into something? I think to me, the way to look at the answer to that question is to answer that you need to sit down with yourself and figure out what your actual goal is with the project. So like, you can't think, well, how long is this gonna take? Or how much work is this gonna be, or whatever, until you understand what you're trying to accomplish with the project specifically. Because, you know, that goal is going to inform every other part of the process. Like, well, how pretty does it need to be? And then that's gonna tell you how much longer it's gonna take. Does it need to be in color? Is that important to me? I think the big thing that like most new, especially people who are new to comics and aren't really familiar with how much work goes into them, is that they don't realize how much work it is, and they go into it, and then you are confronted with all of these decisions. There's so many decisions to make on every single page through the entire process, and you can't make those decisions if you don't have a clear idea of what you're trying to accomplish with the work. And I think if you sit down with yourself as a creator and with your goals and with the project that you're working on, and you answer those first, everything else kind of just makes sense following that.
So can you elaborate just a little bit on what you mean by that? So in determining, is it this is the message that I want to convey, or I know that this character needs to go from A to B, or what's this particular story beat that you're trying to hit? Or is it like I'm telling this morality story that must be completed in this way?
I think it's before you even sit down with the story itself. Like before, it's way more abstract. Like first of all, you should sit down with yourself as an artist and think about what you want as a person out of your career and your life, I guess. Because you're going to be spending a significant amount of it drawing if this is the career path that you choose. And then just understanding what you want to say with whatever it is you're working on. Maybe it doesn't even need to be a comic. Maybe it could be better said with a different medium. I don't know. Everybody's different. But yeah, but it's not even like a question. You're not even to the story yet. You're still in the what am I doing? What am I doing here?
So you heard it here first. To start a comic, figure out your entire life.
Yes.
What are you doing with your life? And then don't go to school and don't listen to anybody. And learn nothing.
I think you should just go sit in a dark room for a really long time, and maybe the answer will come to you.
Healthy.
Drink water while you're there, though.
So I think my answer to this question is going to come from a little bit more of a traditional publisher standpoint, because I wouldn't be drawing my comic if it didn't have a publisher attached to it. I would have let it die on sub. But in the vein of that question, the decision to draw this comic was all in the pitch. I wouldn't have pitched a comic if I wasn't ready to draw it for 2 years. And the pitch was a work between my agent and myself. You draw about 12 pages of a comic. You write about 50 pages of script. And then you look for a publisher from there. And if I didn't have any interest from a publisher, that would have been all that I did for it.
So tell us a little bit more about that process. So what was it? How many stories did you go through pitching before you landed on one that was picked up?
This was my first.
That's amazing.
I was prepared for it not to be, though. I was prepared to pitch until, do 4 or 5 more. I was very, very lucky that my very first pitch got picked up.
That's awesome. Is it? Oh, that's great.
And outline about how did you pick your agent? What are some of the accoutrements around the idea of traditional publishing that made that a viable pathway for you, as opposed to something like a self-published or webcomic or other routes that you could have taken?
Yeah, so my way to getting an agent was actually very not traditional. A lot of people will have their pitch or their comic that they want to be agented and then shop it around. I was fortunate that I was pitching with an author who was very willing to do that part for me. So he shopped our comic around to agents, and I got signed on by my agent because of the work that he did. Getting an agent is a lot of work, and I'm very, very lucky that I didn't have to go through that, and I'm very lucky that I have an agent that's been working very well with me.
Awesome. We're going to open it up to audience questions in a smidge. So start thinking about those now. And what I would love to ask y'all is, what are your favorite comics that are on your shelf right now that you've read in the past? Maybe you would love to get your hands on of that particular comic or graphic novel, either way.
I think one of the most perfect books ever published or made is This One Summer by Jillian and Mariko Tamaki.
Tell us about it.
It's a YA graphic novel about a summer between teenagers, just sort of discovering themselves, discovering what sexuality is. They run into, they start sort of listening around town and start understanding the drama between it. And it's this very sweet and very understanding view of what being 12 or 13 is like.
what did that story mean to you as a creator? And how did you, from your artist lens, how did you look at that?
Well, for one, it's very, very beautiful. So from an artist lens, you look at it and you go, I want to make that. I want to make a book that looks as beautiful as that looks. And I think from a writer's stance, you want to make a book that makes someone feel like that. You know, you want to make a book that reminds someone of what it's like to be at a certain place in your life.
Oh goodness. Most of my favorite comics are obscure web comics that various people are making. String Theory and Job Satisfaction, which is sadly on a long-term hiatus. But as far as things people might actually know, I really love Doom Patrol for a bunch of reasons. But I think the easier one to talk about is probably Dungeon Meshi. For a long time, the comic that I would hold up when people ask me like what is the thing that you admire most? It was Full Metal Alchemist, Hiro Murakawa. Just it's tight and efficient, and you know it's written by somebody who really understands the medium and storytelling. There's not a wasted second anywhere in it. Dungeon Meshi is even better than that, and it just completely blew me away when I read the whole thing. I procrastinated for a long time, and then I read the whole thing in like 2 days, over 100 chapters, and I think I love the sort of thing that it's fun, it's pretty to look at, but it's also just, I really like watching somebody be really good at something that they understand really well, and I feel like that artist had the room to be very good at what she does, and then she did it, and it blew me away.
I'm going to kind of bridge, forgive me, I'm going to look up the name because I cannot think of it to save my life, but I'm going to bridge the gap a little bit and give you guys a much smaller version, and then one of the most impressive comics ever made. So there's this book called Blister, a punk rock memoir. Please, what's your name, friend? Just am begging to get it.
We have like a very good mix of different approaches.
Yeah, I think this is going well.
All right.
Blister, a punk rock memoir by Eric J. Cockrell, that I totally knew. Edit that out in the video. And no, thank you. and the thing that I love about that book is that it is, to me, so inspirational in like, it is so rough and so messy and so like fun, and it's so clear. I love art where people clearly just cared so deeply that they had no choice but to put it into the world, and that's what that book is for me.
A raw passion project.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. It's also hilarious. And then to me, the greatest comic ever made is Hellboy. Mike Mignola is a genius, and it's just like, there's something so amazing to me about that character and world, and it's just such a cool, weird blend of like ethereal mythology and pulpy, weird monsters.
There's so many good comics in the world.
I know.
What is a story element or a character element or a narrative arc that you want to reach for, that you aspire to, that you haven't been able to accomplish yet?
I want to make something, I'm trying to think how to say that, how to put this in words. I think on a character level, I want to have an arc for a character that feels well-rounded, but also not obvious. And I think it's easy for me to superheroes' character arcs, generally speaking, are pretty obvious. And I think that can be really good, but it's also like something bad happens, they have superpowers, they have to rise to the challenge, end of story. And I think that's beautiful, but also I love things that take you by surprise, and then you look back and you go, oh, of course, that's what they were planning the whole time. It makes perfect sense, but I never could have seen that. So that's a vague answer for you.
I don't think I think I built Kid Commander to be like a sandbox. I built it so that it would grow with me because I knew I was going to be doing this for a really long time. And I've left room for myself to change gears into different genres or work with different themes kind of whenever I feel like it. I don't think I really aspire to do anything that I can't or haven't been able to do because I get to do exactly what I want with my work all the time, which is very nice. I'm very grateful that I get that luxury. If there's something that I want to do, I make room for it, and the only reason that I haven't done it is because I'm getting to it.
I think I would love to take a character that you hate and turn them into a character that you adore. I think that's very, very hard to do, and I think I would love to write something like that someday.
Kelsey, specifically for you, from the world of traditional publishing, how often do you get to explore the sandbox ideas, and in what format does that take for you?
I don't know that I really have the opportunity to explore the sandbox areas. I think that there are authors that do it. I think Dogman is a really good example. Captain Underpants, like he's
Dav Pilkey.
Yeah, he's done a really good job of making something that's very lovable and very quick to make and very popular. I think that's kind of what you need in order to make a sandbox world as a comic creator, is that you need to make something that has a lot of reach.
I want to open it up to audience questions. So hopefully you've had enough time to think about some questions you'd like to ask. And if you do, feel free to raise your hand and we'll call on you, and feel free to just shout it out and we'll be here for you.
While drawing, how do you prevent or lessen the effects of wrist injuries?
Draw worse. No, but very sincerely, you want to be able to draw really quickly, and you want to be able to draw for a long time. Doing wrist stretches between, making sure that you take your breaks, making sure that your pages aren't going to take you a very, very long time to draw. If you're having to draw 2 pages a day, they can't take you 16 hours because you can't do that long term. You're going to hurt yourself.
Yeah, draw worse. Take those shortcuts. Anybody who, I know so many people who come over to comics from illustration backgrounds, which is great. They're wonderful artists, and they make a very lovely 10 pages before they burn out. So, yes, the comics are not, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And you need to figure out how to adapt your style to allow you to do enough work to get all the stories done. General ergonomic health stretches. Make sure that if you can, the space that you work in is comfortable on you. Take lots of breaks. Give yourself enough time that you're not having to rush, and draw worse.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys honestly covered it. Learn nothing. No, I think, yeah, there's a lot of good wrist stretches out there, and it's so important. It's going to feel really dumb at first because you're like, I'm just drawing. This is not, I'm not working out. It kind of is though, honestly, and you're like, it's hard. You're developing muscles. You're working your tendons. Like it's a lot, even if it's not super physically straining. So keep stretching a lot, so much more than you think you need to. And also, like, this is such a specific thing. I have, for whatever reason, most of my desks that I've worked on have been too high, and so I need to find higher and higher chairs so that I'm not like this trying to draw. It's not healthy. It's not good. So find a good ergonomic desk space if you can get. Yeah. I'm on 16 ladders stacked on top of each other trying to draw.
So don't do that?
The ladders?
Yeah, we shouldn't do the ladders?
Well, 17 might be a bit much.
Okay.
But no, I think 16 is good. Maybe 15.
That's a whole separate panel.
Yeah, well, 15 in a step ladder.
I'd watch that. I would watch that comic every day.
Comics
to
on
see.
ladders.
Yeah, comics on ladders. More questions from the, go ahead, yes.
How do you guys tend to approach, like promotion and social media presence, especially for something that's like so long term?
Yeah, that's a great question. How do we do promotion and social media for a long-term project? A lot. It's just a lot. I think I feel in the last 2 years to probably 1 year, I've been getting sillier and sillier on social media and in real life, and it's so freeing to just realize that I literally did this the other day. It was snowing, and I just put on a dinosaur hoodie, and I went out in my pajamas, and I filmed an ad for my comic, and I have spent hours drawing an ad that got 2 views, and that stupid pajama ad that I did went gangbusters. So just do what fuels you in that too. And I think if you're there, if you have a presence, and if you have a voice, I think people are gonna care about it.
I'm pretty sure we shared that video on the Fort Collins Comic Con Facebook page, so it went everywhere.
That's why
as
it
a
was
result.
successful.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it was silly enough that we connected with it, and we were like, yes, let's go.
This comes up a lot because it's really difficult and complicated. I've been hanging out on the internet basically my whole life, and I think because I was a reader of webcomics before I jumped over to the other side of it, and having existed as an audience member and as a creator in both, obviously, still, I think people are really starved for sincerity, especially now, because even webcomics, even the independent, punk scenes have gotten so polished and commercialized and streamlined, and I think people are very starved for sincere interactions and sincere art. I get told all the time that, you need to be on Instagram, you need to be where the publisher parties are going on, I don't know, I guess it's Blue Sky now, it used to be Twitter. I've been doing this too long. And I really didn't enjoy it. I was miserable. I absolutely hated it. So I just hang out on Tumblr, because that's where all the weird people who like my work hang out. My work is also very niche, but the people who are into it are very enthusiastic about it, and that's how I've been able to keep going. And I think, again, everything circles back around to understanding what you're trying to accomplish. I don't really want to be a rock star. I don't need, a Netflix contract or anything. I want to make enough doing this to continue making it. And I've been able to do that by just being sincere, just being honest about what I'm making, and treating the audience like human beings and not wallets. Hanging out in spaces as a human being and not as a brand. I think too, especially from the webcomic side, from independent stuff, when you post stuff for free over a long period of time, it just kind of naturally becomes part of people's daily routine. Bill Watterson talked about it, the Calvin and Hobbes, I don't know if that's, but he talked about the dailiness and unpretentiousness of comics being a source of power, because people bring it into their homes and they sit with it at the breakfast table, and now they check it on their phones while they're waiting in line somewhere, and people enjoy that presence in their life. And then if you give them the chance, they will support you so that they can keep getting it. And that's, I'm not a huge deal or anything, but I am able to do this full time, so that's pretty good, I think, and that's how I've been able to do it.
I think again I come at it from a little bit of a different angle because a lot of my work is not being put on the internet right now. A lot of the promotion work is going to happen after I've already drawn everything. I have plans for that. I haven't done them yet. But in the meantime, my audience comes from my illustration work, my personal work, and things that I'm drawing sort of for that audience and not necessarily for the comic. So I think just continuing to maintain a presence, continuing to do the work, continuing to put things out.
Is that something that's unique to the world of graphic novels in terms of how a publisher approaches you to say, it's okay if you don't do the prelim promotional work that would normally, like for a horror author or for a romance author, other things like that. Maybe they're teasing short stories, or they're out there with social media, or they're doing other things like that. Is that a unique aspect to graphic novels, or is that unique to your particular publisher, that the promotion happens after I've created the thing?
So the thing about that is that the book's not going to come out until about a year after I've already finished it. So if I'm promoting it now, when I haven't finished it, people are already going to have forgotten it. So it's not necessarily unique to my publisher, and they haven't told me like, hey, don't promote this or anything. It's just that I'm waiting until I have that long period of time where I can post a lot of stuff back to back, and that's kind of my plan.
Let's talk about, and we'll come back to audience questions in just a second. Let's talk about for a moment what it looks like to build an audience for your work. And having published 2 graphic novels already, what did the mechanisms of marketing look like for you from the traditional side of publishing, as opposed to, and I'm just curious if they're different than what happens on the self-publishing or the webcomic side of things as well?
I think on the traditional side is probably a little bit less just yourself. Our graphic novel, obviously, like we had arcs that were sent out to people. We got a starred review from the school library journal, which was really, really exciting for us. That was really cool. Those kinds of things are things that don't happen with self-publishing. From the once it was published and you had it in hand, from that aspect of it, do you attend like Comic-Cons? Do you go to, I mean, obviously you're at Book Festival, but what else comes along with that? What I did the day that it was published actually was really cool. I went to 3 different middle schools and did a kind of like drawing demonstration for them. And got questions from the kids and questions from like kids that were interested in art, and that was really fun and cool. I think that's something that I got to do because I was traditionally published.
Aria, how about you?
Well, she is correct. That's not happening if you're in indie publishing. Right now, just get really used to the idea that you are going to have to handle all of this yourself. I think I'm terrible at marketing, like still even, after doing it for a million years, just because I'm, networking, and I can do it well enough to get by, but man, it's not fun. I don't think anybody enjoys it, but I definitely.
There are people who it's entire job is doing that.
I guess.
Maybe they don't enjoy it.
I hope they do.
But in my experience and what I've seen with a lot of other comic folks, you can pitch in too. But it goes back to that building a long-term relationship with your audience that is respectful and transactional isn't authentic. I'm thinking like there's give and take. I can't think of the word that I want for that, but where they trust you, and it's very slow, but if you put in the work to do that, eventually they'll start, if you can get a core of enthusiastic readers, they will tell other people about it. And at this point, no one is clicking on ads. Nobody cares. I mean, you're the ad that you worked hard on, and I've certainly done that myself. Oh, this is great. This is the perfect pitch, and what, 2 views? Everyone's sick of being advertised to. People want to hear about things from people they know who have nothing to sell them. They're just genuinely excited about something. And then that's what you want. Word of mouth is the best advertising, but that's pretty much all we got in the independent scene. So, that dovetails back into treat your audience with respect and authenticity, and be nice to people on the internet who are supporting you. And generally they will take care of you just on their own because they like your work so much and they want you to stay alive so you can keep making it.
And it strikes me that there's parallels there between the more traditional side of things and building that reciprocity of the relationship. Reciprocity. There you go. $5 word.
More than that.
The idea of if my kiddo comes home and tells me about some cool author who has this great graphic novel that also came and taught how to like draw hands better or whatever it was, the moment of like, oh, how do I draw this cool character that I have in mind, and they come home and excited, they're getting a sale. And I think that trust building happens in different mediums depending on what level of access you have to your audience, and that reciprocity that seems to exist there is important to build, and that just was an interesting parallel to me. What about you, John?
Yeah, no, that's super important. I think the only thing that I'll add is, it's way more fun than we're making it sound. Most of the process. It's one of those things where it's like, if you ask me how much time I spend on it, it's like I don't want to think about that because it's way too much. But it is so much fun, and I think like even honestly, the advertising, when you can find a way to do it that's you, it's way more fun. Yeah, in a way that isn't physically painful. Yeah, but no, I mean like it is all about the community. It really is, and it's not even like your specific community. Just seeing people care about what you care about is enough to keep me going on that. And like literally one comment of like, oh wow, this is amazing, or like this chapter made me cry, or whatever the comment is enough. Hopefully you get more than that, but like it's enough to be worth it, honestly. And it's like weirdly addictive. It's a great process. And yeah, I'm trying to think in terms of I can only imagine, I was going to ask you about this earlier. Do you find that like the gap between those two, between when you're done with the book and when the book is coming out, I feel like I would have, you said it's like a year, I'd have 365 business panic attacks. Like I think that would be awful. So how was your experience with that? I would love to know what you kind of went through with that.
So the short answer is I haven't yet. I worked with a little publisher for Off Menu, and I finished in May. It came out in October, so there wasn't a very long time between it. My publisher that I'm working with now is much bigger. I'm working with Putnam, which is an imprint of Penguin, and they want more time between the space of the book being finished and the space of the book being published.
So I just put that into the universe then for you, huh?
Yeah, we'll see.
Whoops.
I mean, being an illustrator, that I can speak to, like the idea of like sometimes you make things and they're under NDA for a long time, and then suddenly you have a bunch of work that you can advertise, and you go, it's old now. I don't like it anymore. But you still post it because you need to show people that you're still relevant and doing things, right, that you still exist.
Any more audience questions? Okay, we're going to go with our friend here in the front, the second row right here.
What's your favorite and least favorite thing to draw?
That's a really fun question. I really like drawing hair. I really like drawing backgrounds. I love getting into like a nitty-gritty, like little detailed, everything on a shelf kind of background. Unfortunately, that takes forever in comics, and like don't do that.
Because you don't do it once, you do it a bunch of times.
Yeah, you have to do that then in every scene
It's fun the
that
first time.
exists in that space.
Least favorite thing to draw.
Don't have a least favorite thing to draw if you're gonna draw
That's
comics.
really good advice.
Don't do
You have to
that.
draw everything.
Yeah. Yeah, learn to love to draw everything if you're gonna make comics.
I do hate drawing a lot of stuff, though.
Don't do that.
It's kind of a problem because I really love mechs and cool vehicles and guns and robots. I hate drawing all of that. It's too much. It's too many details. Don't put any of those in your comic ever. Blobs. Rob Liefeld does it all the time. So, as much as I love them, the nitty-gritty the nitty gritty details, the opposite. But specifically, I think cars and guns, they're on a page and it takes me way longer to draw it because I don't want to do it. I love drawing expressions. That is my favorite thing out of anything. I would do 1 million pages of talking heads having conversations and I would be happy.
I'm learning, I'm drawing chapter 7 right now, and so I'm learning very much how I don't like drawing buildings because I have to remember the geography. Like, I enjoy the specific buildings, but I don't like remembering where they are in relation to other buildings.
That's a good answer. I hate a map.
It's really, yeah, any geography. I love monsters, love drawing monsters. That's like, doesn't get better than that.
What else?
How do you prevent burnout when you're working on such a long-term project, like either an indie comic that you've been working on for 10 years, or something that's long-lived that may not actually be your project that you're illustrating for another author or something like that? That's a good question.
Yeah, burnout is, I don't think exclusive to artists and writers and creatives at all, but it is prevalent among us. And I think it goes outside of what you're actually working on and taking care of yourself in a physical, spiritual, emotional, just in taking art, like on every level, taking time to just, if you're fueled by being alone, just be alone and don't let yourself work on the thing that you feel like you should be working on. That's my struggle. When I have time, I'm like, oh, I can crack through another page, and I have to remind myself that I really shouldn't be doing that because I'll burn out. So it's like, it's also one of those things that I think I'm learning, and I have learned to have grace for myself when the burnout comes, because you can prevent it 9 times out of 10, and that 10th time it just sneaks up from behind and hits you, and sometimes you're just out for a day. And I think it's better to be out well for a day than be half a quarter in for 3 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the points that I was going to make, definitely, is burnout, in my experience, is usually less about the work burning me out and me just not taking care of myself in general. And then if you don't have any, you need stamina to turn around and draw things and pull things out of thin air. I think, too, it's very important to continue to have a life outside of comics. It's very, very easy for this to become everything that you do, and that's not good. It's unhealthy, physically and mentally, and for all your relationships if you ignore everyone around you to draw comics all day. I think, too, it's important to go out and have life experiences so that you have things to write about and draw and be inspired to do them, and have hobbies that have nothing to do with art, or nothing to do with the art that you're working on specifically. So, like, if you do comics, you should also take up watercolor painting or learn to roller skate. It's something that has nothing to do with the big project. And then that becomes inspiring, and you come back from that and you're energized, and then you're ready to go back to work. And pick something that you enjoy working on long term, if you can.
I would second everything they've said. Just take care of your body. Make sure you're eating. That becomes a thing with artists, is that you forget to eat. Don't do that. Go to the gym. Make sure that your body's good, and maybe you won't be able to prevent burnout entirely, but you'll feel a little bit better, at least when you're in it.
Blue hoodie.
How do you use visual distortion and exaggeration to convey emotion in your storytelling? I found that something interesting I've seen in some comics. When they make a normal looking character suddenly very scary in relationship to how they're suddenly feeling about them.
Yeah, so there's this really, really good book called Framed Ink. And there's a second one out now. And he goes through a lot of the different ways that you can do exactly that. There's so many different ways. Art is an incredible medium, an incredible storytelling medium to work with. You have contrast, you have movement. There's so many different things that you can do in a comic. And then on top of that, you have page layout. So there's all of these things you can do within the panel, and then all of these things you can do outside of the panel. And you have to sort of like make those decisions when you're drawing a page and think about it as an entire like story.
Oh, man, yeah, that's such a big question. It's like it's just I think you probably answered it pretty well. This is just like a talking about like individual style and voice, and like, you know, considering the tone of the comic and how exaggerated you want it to be, if you want it to be funny, or I guess you just take into consideration what the page is doing, like if it is if it's a bit, or if it's violent or scary or something, and then like a beginner answer, I guess, would be to look at other things and that are accomplishing the thing that you're trying to do, and see how they do it, and figure out what you like about that decision, or what you don't like, or why it is doing the thing that you do, and then you are able to make those decisions in your own work. This is such a broad question.
This is a great question. This is wonderful. I think two kind of notes. I think you guys crushed it. But two notes that I'll kind of throw in there as well. The fun thing about those kinds of beats in a story are your story can decide how aggressive those beats get to be. And so, like if you have a normal comic that's just talking heads, people are not exaggerated, and then one of them turns into like a weird pumpkin monster, like that's gonna hit way harder than if one of them is already a pumpkin monster the whole scene. So it's like both can be really fun, but knowing if you take wherever your comic is, it's homeostasis, wherever that is, wherever its like baseline is, and bump it up to 10, that's gonna look so different depending on where the baseline is, but it can be so fun to take a comic that's baseline is here and bump it up to the 10 of a comic that's baseline is here and just blow it out of the water. Like you get so much control in that.
Comics are fun.
They're so fun. Love comics. I don't even remember what my other point was. It was so good.
So I feel like we've talked a lot about the benefits of being traditionally published, but can you guys answer what are the benefits of being self-published?
That's a nice thing to ask. Total control over everything that I get to do. I don't think I could handle, like, especially once I picked up the prose, like, there's been a good amount of traditional interest in it, and I just don't, it's all fallen through because they don't really have anything that I'm interested in that would be worth trading away, like, the control over my work that I have. I think that's probably at the root of any other answer that I would give, is just, I get to do what I want forever as my job.
And you get to keep all of the, when you're traditionally published, I don't get very much back from my books. I get a small percentage back, but I don't get to keep all of the profits. A lot of those belong to the people publishing it. And I think that's an important thing to think about when you're considering traditional publishing.
Yeah, I forgot about money. It's kind of a trade-off. You definitely sell way less stuff independently, but you do keep all of, you bank. You sell way more, but then you get a smaller percent. Yeah, it's complicated. You do have to do math in this job sometimes.
Math I am not good at. Yeah, I mean, there's so many benefits. I feel like we've covered quite a few of them. They just kind of naturally show up, honestly. But I think getting to be the face of something on an ego level is kind of fun. If it's a failed thing, it's less fun, but it can be really fun. But yeah, like for the comic I'm already working on, I wouldn't give that up for the world, honestly. Like
You called it your baby earlier.
it is my baby, it's my little guy, and I love him.
Totally.
That said, and this was mentioned earlier, Cameron, I would take the Netflix deal if it's on offer.
I wouldn't give it up for the world, but I would take the
However,
Yeah. For a show, for a movie, I don't care. It's great.
He's an anime.
Yeah, anything really.
Do we have other audience questions? Otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to these three to ask questions amongst themselves, which I think is like fire off interview questions for each other. Okay.
no.
Do you have questions for each other that you want to ask each other?
If I'd known there would be this segment, I would have prepared a little better. I feel like we have a really good little I'm sorry. I feel like we have a really good little group here because, like, you know, traditional publishing and then different variations on the independent thing. Like, this is a really cool mix for a panel, and I'm upset that I don't have anything prepared for this. So please.
What was the last thing that you drew and you were just like, crushed it, just nailed it?
Really well.
What are you so proud of right now?
Right now, actually, the novel cover that I did, which is kind of old at this point, but it's weird. It's the same story. It's an adaptation of the comic, but it's in my brain. The visuals need to be slightly different. You know, the texture of prose versus comics is different. So I did like a different sort of style for it. Probably I'm the only one who notices the difference in the style there, but I had a really great time putting it together. I really love designing covers in general. That is usually my answer, actually, is the cover of the latest book that I have published is probably my favorite thing that I've drawn recently. That's a cool question.
Okay, so it's not recent, but I brought props and I left them on the ground.
Whoa.
And there's a page in off menu that I'm so obscenely proud of.
The suspense. So psyched. Off menu. I bet it's like some really, really fucking nice, like, Ghibli food. Oh, that's so cute.
That's so rad.
You guys can't see it, but it's super cute
So
up here
cool.
right now.
I'm gonna describe it. So I'm seeing green.
So this spread of off menu, it's actually 6 panels that sort of like bleed together. And I'm really, really proud of this page because it's meant to be just a sort of little going on an adventure.
That is really
That's
cool.
so baller.
Love that. Sorry. I've never done a panel before. I don't know if y'all can tell, but you know, I'm doing my best up here. It looks really awesome. I really love weird layouts like that don't really have borders, especially in a comic that does have borders otherwise. Like you were saying, like, God, even more stuff to think about with comics, but like layouts are there's so much just in the layouts.
Yeah.
One of my, it's a little bit goofy because I don't really keep up with it anymore, but when I was a kid, I really liked the Archie Sonic comics. And every now and then when I go into a comic shop, I'll just pick up the latest issue. The colors are gorgeous, but nobody is doing layouts like the Sonic comics. It's insane. They're so dynamic and interesting. I don't know any of these animals that are on screen anymore. It has been years since I knew what was going on with Sonic the Hedgehog, but man, I don't know. They have an incredible art team lately, and I pick it up and I'm like, man, I gotta learn how to do layouts someday.
Someday I'll get good at trying.
Someday. Would you like to add anything?
Well, Alan Moore's Swamp Thing has some crazy layouts.
Alan Moore is crazy.
Alan Moore is crazy in a number of ways.
Yeah.
In so many ways. That's it.
Tell us about since that is a more non-traditional layout in that particular space. Since it's going on an adventure, you mentioned that was probably the theme that you were going for. Is that what informed the layout in that way and the shift away from the more panelized format? Or were there other things? And what kind of informed your storytelling in that space?
Yeah. So the note on, I don't quite remember what it was, but the note was essentially like, we're going on an adventure in this page. And I was like, okay, bet. I think when you do a graphic novel, obviously like really fun layouts are one of the more interesting things that you can do to make somebody go, wow, but I think you have to hold them back. You have to keep it for a very special moment.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do that sort of thing, the pages leading up to it should be very, very stoic sort of layouts, and then we get to that page and you go, oh, okay.
Yeah, I have a thought about that. That's kind of, I made a little bit of a joke earlier about illustrators painting comics for 10 pages and then getting tired. I've spoken to people who do very, very short comics before, which is yet another variation on how you can approach this whole thing and how it is different. And a note that I've gotten on my webcomic, which is just stupidly long, is, a lot of your layouts are pretty simple. You could push it more here, or you could do some kind of crazy thing. I am actually kind of known for doing weird layouts, but you have to put it in the right place.
Yeah.
Partially for storytelling reasons, because if you're on 11 all the time, it loses the power, and it's not going to land as impactfully as if you save it for when things are chaotic or have a very specific vibe about them. So in my opinion, like, that's kind of a thing that a lot of people do say, is every frame of painting, every layout should be crazy and fantastic, and that's really cool if the comic is short. You can't do that all the time, or you and the audience are going to get fatigued. So I think,
Or it'll never come out.
yeah, or it's just not getting done. So like, kind of what you said earlier about maintaining a baseline and picking and choosing where to spike it, I think is another place that a lot of beginners who are enthusiastic and wonderful, and I totally support them just going for it, but they burn out quickly because they go nuts with their layouts for 20 pages, and then they're like, oh my god, I'm exhausted. That's a cool concept, I think.
So to give you enough time to get to ask your own questions, meet and greet all of our amazing authors here, and to get time to shop with the Crowded Bookshelf, I want to wrap up with an idea of what is the single best bit of advice that you've ever received in this field, and where can we find your work?
Oh, okay. Best advice. I've gotten a lot of really good advice and a lot of really bad advice. I think it's such a baseline answer, but I really do think this is the best advice, is just literally keep making comics. Like, that has been my mantra from beginning, and I think it just has to be, because if you continue to make work, it's gonna be bad for a bit, and every once in a while, even when it's good, it's gonna be bad again. And I think just continuing to make them is so important. So that's the best advice I've gotten. I'm sure there's wiser advice, but that's the one I apply day to day. You can find my work on johnbonart.com. Edge of Border Town, like I said, is free, so that's my pitch. We also have a physical book that is not free because physical things cost money, but you can read the full book for free on John Bon Art. Also, I have some stickers that I brought. If anybody wants a sticker, those are also free. So, yeah, there you go.
In addition to the thing that we have all kept saying, where it's like, simplify it as much as you can so that you can complete the process, I am going to actually echo the same concept. I don't like the idea that there is like innate talent. I think if there is something that sets anybody apart to where they're able to do this and other people aren't, it's just being stubborn enough to get to the point where it's fun to do it and you feel like you're actually making the art that you want to make. You have to work really hard making really bad art that you hate for a long time, and the ability to stick with it long enough to get through that, to get to the good stuff, is the thing that you should try to cultivate in your work. It's a webcomic. It's all online for free. Kidcommander.com, kid with 2 Ds. I've got my whole table over there because we were exhibiting here today, and I just brought it over. But yeah, the whole comic, the whole main canon is online for free at kidcommander.com, and then my author site is shinesurge.net. If there's if you want to check out the prose, or if you want to look at me for some reason, that's the place to go to figure any of that out.
So, almost every single, my whole career hinges on about a 13-page comic that I made once. Every comic job that I got thereafter came from this one 13-page comic. You have to make a comic in order to get into comics. So I would say finish something. It's really, really hard to make a 13-page comic once. But it can make a comics career. I got hired for this book because of it. Because I got hired for this book, I got my agent. Because I got my agent, I got my publisher that I'm now working with. Because I one time, 6 years ago, made a 13-page comic. So that's the best advice that I can give. Build your portfolio. You have to put comics in it. It cannot be just illustrations. You can find me at kelseyjosilva.com. Kelsey spelled with just an I. And Instagram and Blue Sky, I think, are mostly where I'm posting right now.
Awesome. Can we get a round of applause for our amazing authors? Who's leaving more inspired to create and finish something tonight? The hands were a little slow. It's 9 o'clock. I think that's all right. We need to like bring the 9 p.m. panel caffeine. So in hours 3 and 4 tonight, we're going to cover. I'm just kidding. A quick amount of housekeeping. Oh, but first, can we get a round of applause for everybody who asked questions tonight? I know it's really tough to like think up things at 9 o'clock tonight. We're really super happy. Please make sure to stop by the Crowded Bookshelf. Our authors are going to be over at these signing tables to come and meet and greet. And a quick housekeeping note, as you are leaving, you might have noticed our lovely mall security team has closed the gate behind you. That does not mean that you are sleeping in the mall tonight. Although, I mean, John, you could make an exception, I guess. But we're going to help escort you out to the back doors through here. And we're going to go along this right-hand side. There's lights all the way through, and you exit out to the exterior next to Color Me Mine. And we'll help you point your direction to your car if you're a little bit lost. So thank you so much for coming to Bookfest. We're back next Friday and Saturday. On Friday, there's no marketplace. There are, however, a poetry workshop at 5:30 and a poetry reading by our poet laureates, both current and former, and Michelle Batiste, who will be starting at 7:30 on Friday. And then Saturday, the 18th, we are here from 9 to 7 p.m. and we'll be doing a whole bunch of panels, and there will be 40 authors that are in that main hallway again to sell their work and help you find your next great read. Did everybody have fun tonight? Amazing. All right. Thank you for being here at Bookfest.